Hello, everyone, and welcome to today's FHS Africa podcast. We're joined today by Erwin Garnier, the Senior Director of Development for Africa for the Radisson Hotel Group. With over 20 years of global hospitality experience. I mean, obviously, Erwin, you don't look old enough for such experience. Erwin's heading up the growth across the whole of the African continent for the group. Today's podcast will explore a little bit about the approach to development in the African market, some of the key trends that are shaping the market, and the products that's developing for you, and also just to understand a little bit more about the ambitious growth that you have for the region. So, big welcome to you, Erwin. Thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much, Matthew, and thank you for taking the time to organize this podcast.
It's good to see you. So, tell us firstly about the African hospitality market today. What do you think is the strongest drivers for investment in the market at the moment?
You know, Radisson has been managing hotels in Africa since 2000, and we are now present in over 33 countries out of the 54. And roughly, to put you in the pictures, we have around 100 hotels open under development on the continent. So there is a gap for international branded hotels to fill in those cities that are growing. So the investor interest is being driven by one, high demand, low supply, and obviously the increasing connection of travel, the increasing demand of local and regional traveler. All of that connected shows that there is strong demand, low supply, and thus a strong interest from investors.
And what are the key African markets that you've got your eye on at the moment?
You know, today we target 4 key countries that we see as proactive, which is obviously Morocco, with a strong pipeline of hotels, and in fact a strong reorganization of the country led by the king and related to the event that are happening in 2030 with the World Cup. So that's a key market for us. Of course, South Africa and Nigeria and Egypt. That's the 4 key markets where we see that those markets will represent more than 50% of the hotel pipeline in the next few years.
But that's not ruling you out of other African markets either. I mean, you've obviously got, but that's
of course.
Yeah.
No. We clearly this is a strategic priority, because we know that out of that market, a lot of projects are coming up. But it doesn't mean that we are not looking at other markets. Whether it's in North Africa, we are developing hotels in Algeria. If you look at West Africa, obviously, Abidjan in Ivory Coast, and Dakar in Senegal, or Accra in Ghana remains a top priority for the group, whether we want to have additional hotel in those destinations, or if you want to enter into the market. If you look at East Africa, Kenya, Ethiopia, and Tanzania remains a priority. And for Southern Africa, I mean, just to name Angola or Zimbabwe or Botswana remains market that we are looking whether to enter or to expand. So we have a simple strategy where we target key markets as a focus, where we put more effort, and there is secondary market where we plug in depending on the opportunities. But this is part of the roadmap we have for the past 5 years.
Now, pipeline is one thing, and Trevor Ward, who works with us on the pipeline report, always talks about those that are pipelined on bits of paper and getting things actually opened is another matter. Now, you have a very good track record at Radisson in getting that done. What experiences, I guess, perhaps even learnt from the Middle East market, have been taken into the African market to get the actual projects done? How have you achieved that?
To tell you the truth, Matt, I think we learned a lot from the Middle East, obviously, and in terms of operational efficiency and in terms of clustering our operation between multiple hotels, or having a more process-oriented strategy for opening hotels. But in order to be clear, signing a hotel and opening a hotel is a very different game, as we all know. And we see a lot of hotels being signed in the pipeline report, and we know that at least 50% of the signings will never materialize. And one of the main reasons is funding. And funding is not an issue in the Middle East, far from it. This is the last issue they have. Whereas in Africa, this is the first issue we have. And the reason for that is the profile and the environment where the hotels are being opened, the access to equity and the access to debt. So looking at the success we had in the past 4 years, we have opened more than 15 hotels in Africa, which is a record in the region. And the reason for that is we have completely changed our way of approaching a hotel project since day one. Meaning that today, when we approach a hotel, we have much more due diligence into the project. Meaning that our due diligence is obviously on the promoter, but it's also on the project structuring, the professional team, the funding, and the details in the funding. So what I'm trying to say is our approach has been much more as a partner than an operator. Before, we used to, and I'm talking about it when I started with the company 10 years ago, we used to approach a promoter. We are the operator. We do our job, which is we're going to manage the hotel. So we will look at the project fact sheet, and we'll look at the fundamental of the hotel, but we'll not enter into too much details of your costing and your funding and your value engineering. Whereas today, it's extremely different. Today, I will enter into a lot of details into those questions because I know that it's going to impact the opening of the hotel at the bottom line. And the opening of the hotel is a prime objective of the owner and of the operator. Signing is just, in the end, a detail. So I think the approach has changed quite a lot and has been very successful. I have to say that it's a lot of more work for the operator, but it's also much more success into our project. So on the long run, if I may say, it's less work, because when you sign a project that doesn't happen, you need still to sign another one that will open at some point.
Yeah, better to focus in. So, obviously, you mentioned 33 countries of the 54. You're working in 33 different ways of working as well, right? So, how do you manage different regulatory challenges and ways of working and funding and so on? How do you actually do that?
The reality is, step number one is we do our homework before entering the country. We study the country, we study the dynamic legally, fiscally, and operationally. The second element is we partner with promoter that 95% of the time are locals and understand the environment, understand the struggle and the way to go around those struggles. So, overall, we are present in 33 countries, and the approach is operationally can differ from time to time depending on the regulation, but it's still managing a hotel. It still have the same reception. It still have the same basic. There will be different regulation which can impact your funding strategy in this case, You're going to have some DFI that are present in some countries and some that are not, or will be able to use that level of funding. The costing is going to differ from one country to another. If you look at the costing of a hotel in Morocco, and if you look at the costing of a hotel in Nigeria, it's almost 3 to 4 times difference. So obviously, the value chain is very different, and the funding is going to be very different as well. But in the end, what we do is we use data intelligence, we use our track record, and we use our partners in order to adapt to the environment and make the best out of it. And that's a reality. I think the reality in Africa is being able to adapt as much as possible, because regulation change. We are dealing with in some countries where when we entered into the country, the regulation was A and today is B. It has changed over time in the same country. And it's all about being able to know the right people, educate yourself, and adapt to what's coming.
So, in keeping in mind with that, your joint ventures must be structured in such a way that with the local partner, you're you're very flexible as well. And tell us a little bit about some of the strategies or perhaps the way that you've worked with partners to help mitigate both forex and also attract sovereign funding.
For example, we have this issue in Nigeria where there is the forex exchange is challenging, and there is devaluation into the currencies that makes the project more challenging. And the strategy for that is if we're talking about funding, is to have a mix of foreign currency and local currency into the project in order to be able to pay whatever comes from abroad with your foreign currency, whatever comes from what comes locally with a local currency. With regards to DFI, I mean, it's all about structuring a package for investor and for banks that will become acceptable. So it's using, again, the right professionals in order to create, for example, a bill of quantities that is with the company that is verified by the bank. They won't use anyone. And it's the same for the feasibility study. It's going to be the same for the financial forecast. What I'm trying to say is the bank, the DFI, will overall require the same level of information from one country to another. So it's all about having the right experience, and to have the right experience is to have the right people. In the end, it's a people's business. Managing a hotel is people's business, and structuring the hotel for operation, it's about creating a business plan in the end, and all the required information. And those required information are being done by experienced and professionals. The challenge into this is most of the time, the professional that are being able to do those, what we call bankable documentation, are coming often from abroad. If I'm working on a project in Botswana, rarely I'm going to find the qualities of a local person for all the different information that are needed. Sometimes it's going to come from South Africa, sometimes it's going to come from Dubai, sometimes it's going to come from wherever in Europe. What I'm trying to say is the cost of creating this bankable information is fairly high compared to if you were doing a project in Morocco, for example, where you have all the capacities in the country. And this is where it starts the challenge of those projects. Those projects is most of the time require qualification of people that often come from abroad and thus are being paid subsequently. And thus the costing to enter into the project is very high compared to other destinations.
So, coming on to a little bit about you and what drives you, I guess you. I don't know how many deals you've done now on the continent. What sort of career highlights have you got from the industry? What sort of deals were you most proud of, and why?
I would say that the deal that I'm the most proud of are the deal that are materialized, the deal that open. And the reason is very simple to me, at least, is to have a sense of um, creating value by having those hotels open and having people being able to being trained and work into the hotel business. So if you look at hotels, for example, that I did in Madagascar, I mean, there was only one international hotel in the capital city, and we opened 3 hotels at the same time. So we created a lot of, let's say, opportunities for the local that for most of them never worked into a hotel. So creating opportunities to improve their life and directly and indirectly for the people of Madagascar. For me, that's where I feel satisfied, is where I can help others. It's not only about creating a deal and creating value for the company, which is a given when you work with a company. You create value for it, that's why you're there. But my personal satisfaction is to see that you help others. If you start to live and spend some time in Africa, you obviously see that there is a lot to do and everybody needs support over there. We're not in Europe. And when you see that, and I spent enough time to travel around, obviously, if I can give any help to the people over there, this is where I feel proud about it.
I tend to agree. I think that it's lovely to be part of something which you can see the direct benefit of as you go around these countries and you see the hotels working and people part of the operational team, and the jobs created, and it's a
And people
fantastic.
being able to learn and to grow. And when I see people that never worked into a hotel, work in one of our hotel in whether it's Nairobi or Kigali, and then I learned that this person went and transferred into another hotel for a training in Europe and start to have an international career, whereas he never worked before in a hotel before. Yes, this is where I feel a sense of purpose, and I feel proud of what I'm doing. Now, to tell you the truth, signing a contract and just a contract without the satisfaction of a hotel, for me is not, this is not where I find
It's not where
satisfaction.
the deal is. The deal is when it's operational and you see
I
the.
think for all parties, whether it's the investor, the operator, or the people, because in the end you have 3 different, you have the owner on one side, that's the investor, the operator that is managing, and the people which are going to take care of that property for the next years. And this is, I think, the real value.
So coming on to the end of the month, hopefully getting to Nairobi and seeing there. Radisson have been long supporters of the event. What are you hoping to get from it this year, both in regards to understanding opportunities or meeting new people? What's your wishes and ambitions?
You know, my wish is multiple. On one side, it's always to meet new promoters and investors. On the other side, it's of course to be updated into the market and learn new trends, learn from others, other experiences, and of course, catching up with professionals and colleagues.
Well, Owen, thanks for your time today and taking the precious time from your busy schedule. But thanks, and I hope to see you in a few weeks in Nairobi.
Yeah, sounds good. Thank you so much, Matthew.